Bonjour.
Hello and welcome to So French, le podcast about France, its crazy politics and life à la française. My name is Sara Bertilsson.
And my name is Stefan de Vries.
And this week, France is struck by two sexual abuse scandals. One after the killing of an 11-year-old girl in the south of France, and the other one involving one of the country's most famous artists.
Yeah, two very different cases, but both questioning the Republic's ability to protect its women and children from abusive men. We'll talk about the political fallout of these events.
And a long-awaited return, I should say, of the most gentle, manly of all thieves.
Nicolas Sarkozy?
No, you will find out who later in the show.
After Lyhanna, an 11-year-old girl, was found dead in southwestern France earlier this month, it immediately reignited criticism of a justice system that's said to have failed. Rightly so, because the man suspected of her killing had already been the subject of 5 separate investigations for sexual violence against children, all of which were dismissed or dropped with no further action taken. Emmanuel Macron spoke of dysfunctionings, the justice minister of failure, and as always in these cases, immediate talk about harsher punishments and new laws.
Yes, true. What do you say, Stefan? Is it a failure? And is it harsher punishments that will avoid these kind of horrible events to happen again?
Well, it's always difficult to isolate these very rare events, however tragic they are, and then depict a broader image of the system. But it is true that the judicial system in France has been under stress for many, many years, lacking funds, pretty old-fashioned, not very active when it comes to sexual abuse cases. So it is an illustration on, of course, the whole system that is not working well. But to focus on just this case, as are doing the politicians right now, it is, of course, a bit opportunistic. What happened with Lyhanna is a symptom of a much broader problem in France. And the debate is not really about that right now. It's really about this specific case. There's also pressure mounting on the minister Gérald Darmanin to resign. But it will not help anything. The problem is a structural problem, and that is something the government needs to tackle. And so far, they don't really seem to be aware of the fact that all the problems in the judicial system in France are basically also the result of very, incompetent politics. What do you think, Sarah?
Yes, and they have wanted to do this, a question about an individual case. They're talking about errors and dysfunctionings, but on an individual level, you would say. Emmanuel Macron, what I find incredible was that immediately after the body of Lyhanna was found, the fact that there was this other complaint made last year that had never been investigated properly. Jérôme Barella, which is the name of the person who is now suspected of the killing of Lyhanna, he was never taken into custody or even interrogated. Emmanuel Macron came out immediately and said that this should not be a question of resources. He even said it, I don't want to hear anyone talk about resources in this case. And then immediately putting the question of the system itself to the side and making everything, as you said, about this individual case. And what is astonishing about that is the fact that it is the system that is the problem. This is an extreme consequence of the system. But the failures of the system has been pointed out by women's organizations, by the magistrates themselves, by the police themselves. There was this big investigation done a couple of years ago about specifically abuse of children in France. And they pointed out in this big report 82, I think, measures that were absolutely necessary to take to put the French justice system on the right track and be able to deal with these very, very serious cases. And nothing has been made. And so to say that this is not a question of resources, it's really not taking these questions seriously, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's true that the budget for the justice system has increased over the past years, but so has the number of cases in a massive way. And the number of magistrates in France are, I think, half the numbers of those that you have on an average level in the European Union.
Yeah.
And also the budget itself is lower than many other developed countries. I think that the French budget is half of that of Switzerland, for example, and much lower than of Germany. So there is a problem with the system, and refusing to talk about those problems is really denying justice for all these children who are victims of abuse.
Yeah, and to give you an idea about how much money is being spent in France, it is on average 77 euros on justice spent per inhabitant, whereas in Germany and the Netherlands, it's almost 140 euros, so that's almost double. Switzerland is even more extreme. 245 euros are spent every year there on justice per inhabitant, so that's more than 3 times France. So you see that the French justice system is underfunded, and of course has been underfunded for many, many years. If you look at the buildings where the courts are in France, but also police stations, they're completely derelict and have very old computers, and it is clear that they are lacking a lot of means. And it is, of course, quite ridiculous of Emmanuel Macron to deny that is the case, because, as you said, it is the whole system that should be reviewed and redesigned, and not simply the tragical events that happened around this girl.
And you speaking of computers, I was listening to an expert the other day who was talking about the pure and simple fact that the different computer systems that are used within the justice system do not communicate with each other. And this is incredible. This expert I was listening to was making the comparison with how we have modernized, for example, the defense, and how we are putting all this money into building new weapons and creating new systems. But the legal system, which is the foundation of a democracy, you still have these very, very old-fashioned systems that, as I said, can't communicate with each other. So you have to send like letters between the different instances instead of just being able to communicate through a computer system. So absolutely astonishing. Another thing that I wanted you to react to is the fact that no one is really taking responsibility here.
No.
I was listening to the Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin, and he was apologizing to the family for what had happened, but he did not ever take responsibility. He was saying that he would take responsibility after some kind of investigation and after it has been clear then what went wrong. I find that, I mean, is that symptomatic? Does it say, is this how it always works?
I think so. And also his reaction was that no judge will leave on summer holiday this year, and that on the 14th of July, all 70,000 files will have been reviewed. The 14th of July is the national holiday, so this is pure propaganda. And also saying you're not going on holiday. It all sounds so school teacherish to me. It's indeed what you say, not taking responsibility and blaming or trying to blame, using your authority to try to do or show as if you're doing something. But of course, yeah, that the people are not going on holiday. First of all, it's probably illegal because also judges are entitled to their legal holidays. And secondly, it will not help because it is fighting symptoms instead of fighting the system. So it is a very sad case, and I'm not sure whether it will change anything in the judicial system and also in the mentality of the French politicians when it comes to punishments and locking people up as if that is the solution, which it is not, of course.
Speaking of locking up people,
Yes.
yes, earlier this week there were massive protests around the country against, well, mostly the Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin calling for for him to resign, but also calling for justice for Lyhanna. Interesting to see, though, that one who was put in custody and had to spend the night in prison was one of the women who has been a feminist activist,
Yeah.
and who has been leading the protests. And I find it very symbolic that she actually got to spend a night in prison immediately.
Yeah.
And Jean Barella, who was then allowed to roam freely for 9 months and kill possibly then a child before he even got interrogated. It says a lot about what is wrong in this country.
Absolutely. And if this wasn't enough yet, there's another story making headlines the past few weeks regarding sexual abuse. And this time it concerns Patrick Bruel, or Patrick, as he's often referred to in France, one of the country's biggest stars. He's a singer, an actor, for decades already on the top of fame in France, but also in other French-speaking countries like Belgium or Canada. And this week he was held in custody for 2 days by French police on allegations of sexual abuse and rape of several women. It is one of the country's highest profile figures who is now being targeted in the Me Too movement.
Many actually do make a connection between these two cases and saying that considering the large amount of protests and the anger in society regarding the Lyhanna case, they had no other option than to keep Patrick Bruel, who is not accused of anything as serious, of course, but to keep him in custody and really make this interrogation last for longer than maybe first initially planned. It is very serious allegations, though, that do rest on Patrick Bruel. There were already some years ago complaints that were filed, but they were then dropped because of lack of evidence. But a couple of months ago, Mediapart, which is an investigative website here in France, they produced an investigation with testimonies from several, I think it was 8 women, who all told about how the Patrick Bruel, so this mega star in France, had behaved inappropriately towards them.
Yeah.
And this spanning from the 1990s until 2019, I think it was, in these cases. And one of the women in the investigation actually being a minor at the time of the events. There was other investigations that follow up on this. And then the whole thing was enrolling. At the moment that we're speaking, there are 13 allegations of sexual assault and abuse against Patrick Bruel, but more are likely to come because in the coming days, lawyers have said that another complaint about an attempted rape will be filed, and 2 more complaints for rape are also likely to be filed. So this is a growing investigation and growing pressure, of course, on Patrick Bruel, falling really from the stars this time. I mean,
Yeah.
he I mean, I don't know if people outside of France can really measure what kind of mega star he is here, but he's really one of the biggest when it comes to
Yeah,
both music, but also as an actor. He has
yeah,
played in a
absolutely.
lot of theaters and movies,
Yeah,
and you know, his songs are known by generations of
absolutely.
French, and he's been
Yeah,
in.
a few years ago, I made a short documentary with him and about him, and I spent 2 days with him in Brussels. And yeah, he was very nice, I must say. But also, what struck me, I went to a concert that he gave, and I was backstage, and I was struck by the enormous love all the fans have for Patrick Bruel, but really from very young to very old women, like in their 70s, also men, but mostly women. So he's really, yeah, he appealed to a lot of people from very young age till late. I think he already is like 65 or something. Um,
67,
uh,
I think. But did you,
67.
when you
Yeah.
met with him, then you spent some time with it,
Yeah.
did you, in any of his way of being or acting or what he was saying, did you see any of this um, that could, you know, make you understand his these allegations?
Um, no, I find it hard to say because you know, the Pellicot case also showed us that predators and very pervert and abusive behavior, unfortunately, it can be done by any man. So it doesn't really say anything if a person is nice or polite or gentle. You never know what's behind. Um, I just saw it was about his work, so not about his life. The interview and the documentary for it was for Dutch television, and I found him just very professional, and to me he was very kind and open, and not very demanding actually of such a big star. But that doesn't say anything. Of course, he is innocent until proven guilty, but there are now
Yes,
so many.
he's denying all of this, of
Yes, he's
course.
denying all of this. And of course, there are also quite a few cases in this particular case of Patrick Bruel who could be too long ago, so they can no longer be persecuted. It is quite an astonishing affair, also, yeah, because this has going on for many years. I assume many people knew also about it, and that's something you very often see in these kind of cases with high profile figures. Remember Dominique Strauss-Kahn, many people around him said, yeah, but everybody knew he was like that, so what's the problem? And I think that's also the case here. Maybe it shows once again that as soon as you think there might be a case of sexual abuse, that you do not tolerate it and immediately take action. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah, and we've had, I mean, here in France now, quite a few of these big stars, you know,
Yeah.
being accused of sexual aggressions and abuse and rape. We've had Gérard Depardieu. We've had
Hmm.
Pepe Dia,
Yeah.
one of France's most popular and famous journalists. And yeah, and Patrick Bruel. And I think when we talk about this, everybody knew. It's also a question of everybody knew. There's quite often in these cases they always say that they were put in systems of sort of trying to protect women. I heard, in, for example, when it comes to Pepe Dia, the journalist, where they made sure that he wasn't supposed to ever be alone with young
Hmm.
journalists, for example. So you have people who are facilitating these
Yeah.
men to
Yeah.
continue their behavior. Actually, I don't think they do it in the sense of protecting them. But they want to protect the women and the girls in the environment, but by doing it this way, they are actually allowing for this behavior to continue. But we will see what will happen with the Patrick Bruel case. Of course, he is denying all of these allegations. He says that all have been there's been consenting relationships, and that he has never been either violent or forced himself on any.
Yeah.
But the number of cases are piling up, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see even more coming in the coming weeks.
No. And then from one crook to another, our favorite segment, the imprisoned politicians. This week, we don't talk about Nicolas Sarkozy, but I just mentioned him, so we did. But actually, a very close friend of his, also a very familiar name for the French. And I think in our previous seasons, we sometimes talked about him. Maybe he is not very well known internationally, but we're talking about Patrick, not Bruel, but Balkany. He's the former mayor of Levallois-Perret, a very rich suburb of Paris, just outside Paris. Balkany was sentenced last week to several prison terms in 2 separate cases of embezzlement of public funds, 15 months and 3 years respectively, serious punishments. But no immediate arrest warrant due to his high age and health, also bad health. Balkany was also sentenced to heavy fines, a 10-year ban from holding public office. Well, I think he already was punished with that, right?
He had a 5-year ban already in place since 2020, I think. So
okay,
I'm assuming that this
just
would
expired. Yeah.
Well, it was about to expire, but now I'm thinking they're making sure that he's not making a return anytime soon.
And of course, the Balkany's, the couple, it's actually a couple, Patrick and Isabelle, they have been on front of the gossip press more so than the political press, I think, here in France for 4 decades. And they always are together, Patrick and Isabelle. If Isabelle was going somewhere, then there was Patrick, and vice versa. He's more the actor on stage, and she's more the director. So it's a very odd couple in French politics, but also a very crooked one. They have very close ties with Sarkozy, but also with many other people from the French right. Patrick Balkany went on to serve simultaneously as a member of parliament here in France of Les Républicains and the UMP before that in the National Assembly, and as a mayor also of Levallois-Perret. That's quite common here in France that you accumulate several mandates. In 2016, when we already had So French, Patrick Balkany admitted that he had undeclared assets in Switzerland. He claimed at the time that they were part of an inheritance, but the investigation also revealed that the couple spent significant sums of cash, including 87,000 euros to a travel agency. Well, at the time they were convicted, also with his spouse Isabelle, also for fiscal fraud. It's a whole collection of everything you can do wrong as a high-placed politician. And also, on several occasions, Patrick Balkany has been accused of sexual assault and harassment. So it is not, it's apparently part of this class that there's somehow always
But what is incredible, though, that he remained the mayor of Levallois for so many years, and these accusations, they didn't just come out of the blue one day and no one knew about it. He continued being supported by a lot of people, even though
also in
these
the town, in
accusations were
Levallois-Perret, he stayed very popular. People living there were more or less protecting him and saying that he was a good guy who did so much for the village, and they never really were shocked by all his convictions and his criminal behavior.
But when I was researching today's episode, I came across one news article from the time when he was accused of this sexual abuse of one of his partner at the time, and he was really described. I mean, the whole thing was from 1996, and it shows that things have changed in French society, though, because today you would never write an article in that way when it comes to a question of sexual abuse and
Mm-hmm.
of a woman. But he was really described as this bon vivant, and the whole article was a little bit written in a sort of showing off his funny character and his impressive personality in some ways. So, and I think that he has been able to use that sort of charisma that apparently goes down with parts of the population to stay in that position for such a long time, despite all of these affairs and scandals and convictions.
Yeah, and after this doom and gloom, we stay in the criminal world, more or less, but on a lighter note, some joy this week to those, among them your kids and mine, and myself, by the way, who've been waiting for the new season of French mega's hit series Arsène Lupin, played, of course, by the very charming superstar Omar Sy. The first season was watched by 70 million people in less than a month on Netflix. It was a huge success for this French production, joining one of the most successful programs in the platform's history. There were 3 seasons. And the last episode was aired, I think, in October 2023, 3 years ago. And now many people have been waiting for the 4th season.
Well, yes. So Arsène Lupin, this charismatic gentleman burglar, he was created by Maurice Leblanc in 1905. Okay. So he's actually more than 120 years old by now. And he is a household name here in France. His character has been adapted into virtually, I would say, every artistic medium imaginable. He started appearing in stories in the French magazine Je sais tout. And then Leblanc actually followed up with 17 novels about Arsène Lupin.
Yeah.
So
it's already very old and still very popular, huh?
Well, yes, it's a character that's been able to be adapted, I think, and play into each generation and each era that it has been adapted to. And there's been spin-offs, novels, and plays, and there's been other authors that have been involved as well, publishing authorized and unauthorized sequels to Arsène Lupin. There's been graphic novels and adaptations, both in France, but also in manga version in the 1960s in Japan, apparently very, very successful one. Mm-hmm. There have been silent movies, several of them done in the US, Britain, France, Germany. And then Hollywood produced a couple of movies already in the 1930s and 1940s, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you have in Japan, there has been 3 movies done about Lupin, plus then this long-running animated TV series. And finally, in France, there has been movies done in 1937, 1957, 1959, and the latest one in 2004 with Romain Duris, Kristen Scott Thomas, Eva Green in the roles. So yes, incredibly popular. And well, Stefan, what makes him so popular, you think?
Yeah, I think because he is smart in a way. He has lots of flair. This a bit like Sherlock Holmes. He likes to. He's very creative in these disguises. He's looking very good. He is a bit like Robin Hood, a bit like James Bond, and also he has a revenge motive worthy of The Count of Monte Cristo, a movie that also was a big hit last year, by the way, in France. And interestingly enough, that Leblanc was inspired by Arthur Conan Doyle, the British writer, who wrote Sherlock Holmes. though the writer was forced to amend the character's name to Herlock Sholmes. So it is a Verlan, turning it around.
Herlock Sholmes.
Herlock Sholmes, after a British author objected to the liberty that
I think that's hilarious that
Leblanc
it
took.
changed his name.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
so
It's
funny.
very funny. It's also smart in a way, and a clin d'œil, you know, it's tongue in cheek.
I recently visited Etretat, this French coastal
Yeah.
town, where you can find the house of Maurice Leblanc, and where he wrote Arsène Lupin. You can visit this house. I didn't do it my last trip there, but I'm starting to get it like interested in going back and learn more about both Maurice Leblanc and Arsène.
I think in the second or the third season of the Netflix series, they are going to Etretat, right, to visit this house, and there's something happening. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, but I haven't watched it, so I'm
you
gonna
haven't
prepare
watched
now.
it?
I mean, I have
Sarah.
October, right? October 23 will be the 4th season. I will have time to both go to Etretat, visit the house, and check out the 3 seasons that I missed.
Oh, well, it's great that you still can discover Arsène Lupin, because it's really, really a very nice series. I'm looking forward to the new season. It will be released on October 23rd, so we still have to wait for a couple of months. 8 episodes. Omar Sy, of course, takes on the role again of Arsène Diop, playing alongside Ludivine Sagnier, Antoine Gouy, Soufiane Guerap, among many others, all household names here in France, and also usually with beautiful images from Paris. So I'm looking forward to that new season, and I'm also a bit jealous of you, Sarah, that you still can have the pleasure to discover for the first time this very cool series, Arsène Lupin.
Well, that is all we have for this episode today. You can find all our shows where you usually get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, you name it, we're everywhere. Just search for @SoFrenchShow and you should find us. And make sure that you follow us so that you don't miss any of our new and upcoming shows.
And please share this episode with your friends and family, and do shoot us an email. The address is bonjour@sofrench.show. And the So French podcast is produced and presented by me, Stefan Vries.
And by me, Sara Bertilsson. And this podcast's original music is made by Laurent Blo. We will be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Until then, take care and au revoir.
Au revoir.